Thank you, Chrissy, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be back here at Syndey and able to give another update. So we have put out another resource update. We kind of do that regularly, this time for Paulsens again, second update in 3 months, because we've been very active there with the drill. So I'll go through that and talk a bit about what's next for Black Cat. As Chrissy said, we have two of the highest grade gold mines in Australia. That's Coyote and Paulsens. We have been very active at both of those. We picked those up June last year, so not long. We haven't owned them for 12 months yet. Been very active on that front. Combined, our resource base is now 2.4 million ounces of gold across all three projects. We do have installed infrastructure at Paulsens and Coyote, so for that for us means there's lower risk, lower time frame to getting into production and lower capital costs to do so. We do have a clear strategy, so we do want to get into production, and we're targeting Paulsens as our first opportunity, and we're working on studies that will lead to a decision in the middle of this year on doing that. Bit on the corporate structure, 267 million shares on market, about 130 million market cap at the moment. Top holders have about 46% of the stock. We've got a few big funds in there, Franklin Templeton, US Global, Earth Resources, and then our directors are very large holders as well. Those directors include Paul Chapman and Les Davis, so Silver Lake fame, they took that from a concept and built a successful gold mining business. Certainly we want to do that again. We've got Tony Polglaze, who's built mills all around the world and took Avanco from exploration, development, production and takeover. And we've got Philip Crutchfield, who's a King's Counsel here on the East Coast, and he is also on the board of several other junior explorers. I'm a mining geologist by background, registered manager at Daisy Milano for a few years back in the early days, and certainly looking forward to taking this company into production. So we've been around 5 years now, and the one thing that we've always done is put the shareholder money back into the ground. We've been trying to build our resource base. That's how you can measure how successful a junior resources company is, and we've done that very successfully through a combination of acquisition and discovery. So 2.4 million ounces, and now we're focused on taking it to the next step, getting it to production, focusing on the high margins that come with high grade deposits. And then we'll put those funds and the cash flow back into the business, because we have 3 projects. We don't need to go and purchase a second one. We can just start the second one once we've established our first and we have sufficient cash flow. Should that get into production, we've got production targets set, and we could be a sort of 150,000 ounce producer once all of them are up and running. So I'm going to talk to Paulsens, Coyote and Cal East. More concentrated on Paulsens this discussion. That's where we've been most active. There's lots of numbers coming out of that, and we have just released a new resource today, 322,000 ounces at 10.1 grams per tonne. So that's a 25% uplift from the last one, which was 3 months ago. So we've been very busy there. We've got restart studies underway, and we'll make a decision middle of this year as to what we're doing, taking that project into production. Coyote, another very, very high grade resource in the Tanami. There's lots of activity going on there, but for the moment we are very much focused on Paulsens as a primary goal. And Cal East, we've got a big resource sitting there. We released a PFS last year, and certainly that is ready for when the conditions are right to go and build a plant outside of Kalgoorlie. So Paulsens is the asset that there's a lot of people who know it because it started Northern Star on a trajectory from an explorer. It was their first mining hub and gave them the cash flow to go and pick up the Barrick assets when they exited the country, and the rest is history. They've gone from strength to strength. But this is where it started. So for us, we've got 1,000 square kilometres of very prospective ground. We really like the exploration potential here. But we also have the infrastructure. We've got 450,000 tonne per annum plant. It's been kept in care and maintenance. We've got a dewatered, ventilated, powered underground. So we've got drill rigs that are in the underground at the moment drilling. So able to rapidly grow the resources based on drilling around the underground. we'll talk about the resource next. So 322,000 ounces is the new number. There's an image there of sort of where it sits, so some remnant, and a lot of it is new. There's 133,000 ounces in the Gabbro veins. So that's a new target for us and a new target for Paulsens. But this is a high-grade resource. We've been very focused in the last few months about infill drilling to try and convert more inferred into indicated so that we could get it into a mine plan so that we can then make a decision about restarting this business. But since we acquired this project, that underground resource has grown 360%. So Northern Star left us a resource, they left a small reserve on their books, and we've been able to grow that resource, and we'll be working on a reserve next. As I said, the resources come from growth in the existing resource as well as new resource in the form of the Gabbro veins, which I'll talk to in a minute. It is open. The other thing to note here is the chart down the bottom shows over the 12 to 13 years that this operation ran with a couple of different companies owning it. It had anywhere between 500,000 and 100,000 ounces per in resource. It only ever really had sort of a 2 or 3 year mine life in front of it, which is very typical for WA underground gold mines. We've taken it now to 322,000, so we're well above the average, and obviously we're still drilling, so we do expect to continue to grow this resource. So what's next for us? As I said, we're looking at putting out a study. It'll be effectively a feasibility type level study. We're calling it a restart study because we've got all the infrastructure there, we've got all the approvals. It's a matter about working out the cost of the refurbishment of the mill and about working out the mine plan, and that's what we're working on at the moment. We're planning to complete that work over the next sort of 2 months, so we should have the study out and then we'll make a decision on the back of that. At the moment we have a very experienced team on site. We've got a new general manager there, so he's taking a lot of the bits and pieces back out of care and maintenance and into production. And we're fielding lots of calls from people that have worked at Paulsens before that are inquiring about going back there, when are we going to get it going, which is very encouraging. We feel it's a small mine, we should be able to man this up and get it going, even though the labour market's not still great. We've got engineering in-house, we've got geology in-house, and we're still drilling, so we're continuing to grow. The Gabbro veins is something that has been a success story for us. So Paulsens itself sits on a break in the Gabbro. That's where the bulk of the mining, the bulk of the gold was always known to exist. For us, we've been drilling all these high grades that sit in the Gabbro, so narrower vein, but certainly very high grade. Currently 133,000 ounces sitting in there in this current resource, so 41% of the resource, and it's a new area for the mine. It's a new area that could potentially come into production soon. We're also looking at the bigger picture. So here we've got the mine Gabbro up top. There's 1.2 million ounces that have either been produced or still in resource there, and then below there's an interpreted Gabbro position evident in the geophysics, and that's a target for us. So we're going to be drilling that over the coming months and also doing some EM to help us refine targets, and who knows, 1.2 million ounces in the mine Gabbro, who knows how much is in the lower Gabbro. There's also offset targets. Where does the mineralisation go at the base of the mine after the post mineralisation fault? So we'll be doing that work to go in and target on those areas, and potentially they're transformational, discovery opportunities for this mine. There's a lot going on in the area. I said before, we really like the exploration potential here. For us, we're sitting on a regional fault, the Nanjalgardi fault, and anywhere along that fault, splays could form multi-million ounce deposits, and that's evident in Paulsens, in Mount Olympus, in Karlawinda, all along that fault line. We've got lots of base metal, copper anomalies. We've got gold anomalies, silver anomalies, all that need further follow-up. So most of this is rock chip and soil anomalism, and there's not very much drilling. There are a few other resources that we'll be targeting to extend and grow within the portfolio. So 2 of those that we'll be targeting early on will be Belvedere, which is 5 kilometres from the mill. No drilling has really been occurring in this area for probably the last decade, but there is some good numbers there. It's at one end of a sort of a 2 to 2.5 kilometre long fault with mine workings and rock chips all along that. So really prospective. It needs more work. We've already wrapped some very high level mine designs around that. So we think it could be a satellite deposit to be worked into the mill in time. Mount Clement is a fantastic deposit. The geos love this one. Polymetallic, it's got a bunch of different minerals and obviously lots of payable minerals in this. Currently the 3rd largest and 2nd highest grade antimony deposit in Australia. It sticks out of the ground, so it hasn't been too hard to find so far, but that's where it sticks out of the ground, is where it's been, mapped, sampled and drilled, and then there's lots of opportunity where it goes undercover. So it's open, it's a large resource, it's a very attractive resource in terms of the different commodities that are within that, and we'll be doing work here in the second half of this year to continue to grow and explore. Over to Coyote, we'll go to the up into the Tanami. A lot more remote, obviously, but we still have plant here. We've got in fact the only infrastructure in sort of the Western Tanami, which is a belt that stretches obviously from the Northern Territory through to the WA. We are all in WA here, so we go right up to the border. We've got a fantastic land holding, 885 square kilometres. We've got a 300,000 tonne per annum plant. It's been in care and maintenance since 2013. And there really hasn't been a lot of exploration occurring up in this part of the world for a couple of decades, really. We like this. We did 5 months of drilling here last year, all focused in on the Coyote Central resource, really nailing in on that underground area. And we've got a 356,000 ounce resource in that underground at 14.6 grams per tonne, so it's very high grade. This is what it looks like in a long section. The grey on this image is the workings. They did a shallow open pit and then a small mine. There was about 211,000 ounces came out of this area before it finished in 2013. Very much the mining all focused on the southern limb of an anticlinal structure, and that anticline is where we've focused. Back into the core of that anticline is where we've been drilling, because if you look at the larger deposits in the Northern Territory, the greatest endowment of the gold is in the middle of that anticline. So we just use that knowledge and target in on that, and we've had substantial resource growth in the first drilling that's happened here for a long time. So there's an open pit, there'll be an underground, and we'll do that work in time. At the moment, we'll be out doing some regional work over the next few months while we can with the seasonal windows. We have large gold, arsenic and bismuth anomalies, and they're things that we'll be chasing, looking for, again, multi-million ounce deposits, similar to Cali down the road. Cal East, here we listed with 80 square kilometres, no resource. We've now got 1,000 square kilometres, 1.3 million ounces. We released a feasibility study last year which shows good cash flow after building an 800,000 tonne per annum mill, and that mill goes onto an approved site just outside of Kalgoorlie. Clearly with the current gold price there'd be a lot more cash flow in that. We just released the resource update. As I said, we're now working on the mine restart study, and that'll lead to a decision to mine middle of this year. Should that be a positive decision, we'll start the refurb work early in the second half of this year, and that could lead to pouring gold early 2024. So just to recap, very high grade, very fast growing, lots of established infrastructure to de-risk the project and get us to production and cash flow early. We are currently targeting a decision in the middle of this year, which could have gold being poured early next year. It's a great time to be in gold. We're really looking forward to getting this into production as soon as we can, and we've got an experienced team and really good projects to work with. Thank you very much.